History is filled with kings, warriors, and empires. But sometimes the bravest hero is not a king. Sometimes it is a queen. In the year 1857, when the British Empire was tightening its grip on India, one ruler refused to bow. One warrior chose to fight. Her courage would inspire generations, and her name would become legend. This is the story of the Warrior Queen of Jhansi, India, the year 1857. A vast land of ancient kingdoms, proud warriors, and powerful rulers. For centuries, these kingdoms stood strong, defending their lands and their people. But during this time, a powerful empire was expanding across the world, the British Empire. Its armies crossed oceans, conquering land after land. Across India, kingdom after kingdom began to fall under its control. Treaties were signed, promises were broken, and rulers were forced to accept imperial rule. Many believed the empire could not be challenged. But in central India, there was a kingdom that refused to bow, Jhansi. A proud city surrounded by strong stone walls and loyal warriors. And at the center of Jhansi stood a ruler unlike any other. Her name was Rani Lakshmibai, the Queen of Jhansi. She was not raised to live quietly in a palace. From a young age, Lakshmibai trained as a warrior. She learned to ride horses with remarkable skill. She practiced sword fighting, archery, and battlefield strategy. While others studied royal traditions, she studied the art of war. The soldiers of Jhansi respected her courage. The people admired her strength. To them, she was not only a queen, she was their protector, their leader, their warrior. For a time, Jhansi lived in peace. But history has a way of changing everything in a single moment. When the king of Jhansi died, the future of the kingdom became uncertain. The British Empire had a rule. If a ruler died without a biological heir, the kingdom would be taken by the empire. They called it the doctrine of lapse, and Jhansi was next. Soon a message arrived from the British authorities. Cold, direct, unforgiving. Jhansi would no longer belong to its people. It would now belong to the British Empire. The royal court fell silent. Advisors whispered in fear. To defy the empire meant war. But Lakshmibai did not hesitate. She stood before her court, holding the letter from the British authorities. She read it slowly. Then she placed it on the table, and with calm determination, she spoke words that would echo through history. I will not surrender my Jhansi. Those words were more than defiance, they were the beginning of rebellion. Across India, British armies began to move. Columns of soldiers marched across dusty plains. Cannons rolled along rough roads. Cavalry units prepared for battle. Thousands of troops advanced towards Jhansi. Inside the city, the people prepared for war. Blacksmiths worked day and night forging swords and weapons. Soldiers trained inside the fortress courtyards. Women carried supplies and ammunition to the defenders. Even young boys helped transport water and food. Jhansi was no longer just a kingdom, it had become a resistance. And at the center of that resistance stood the warrior queen. Lakshmibai rode through the streets on horseback, inspiring the people of her city. She spoke not as a ruler above them, but as a leader beside them. This is our home, and we will defend it together. Soon, the British army arrived. Thousands of soldiers surrounded the fortress. Cannons were placed on nearby hills. The siege of Jhansi had begun. At dawn, the first cannon fired. The explosion thundered across the battlefield. Stone walls trembled. Smoke filled the sky. The battle for Jhansi had begun. Day after day, the bombardment continued. Cannons roared across the plains. Arrows and gunfire answered from the fortress walls. Through the chaos, the queen rode among her soldiers, encouraging them, fighting beside them, refusing to retreat. But the British army was relentless. More soldiers arrived, more cannons were brought forward, and slowly the fortress walls began to break. A powerful explosion shattered part of the wall. Stone collapsed into the city. British soldiers surged forward through the breach. The battle spread into the streets of Jhansi. Smoke covered the sky. Buildings burned. Warriors fought fiercely in desperate combat. The defenders resisted with everything they had. But the empire was powerful and the city was falling. Inside the fortress, Lakshmibai's commanders gathered around her. Many were wounded, exhausted from days of fighting. One of them spoke quietly. "My queen, if you remain here, the resistance will die with you." Lakshmibai looked out across the burning city, the place she had sworn to protect. And she understood the truth. To continue the fight, she would have to leave. That night, under the cover of darkness, the queen prepared for escape. She secured her young child on her back, mounted her war horse, and gathered a small group of loyal warriors. The fortress gates slowly opened, and they rode into the night. But the escape did not go unnoticed. British soldiers spotted the riders leaving the city. The alarm spread quickly through the camps. Soon, enemy cavalry began the pursuit. Across rocky ground and dusty plains, the chase continued through the night. The queen urged her horse forward. Hooves thundered across the land. Bullets cut through the darkness. Then suddenly, the path ended. Before them lay a deep ravine. Behind them, the enemy was closing in. There was only one chance. Lakshmibai tightened the grip on the reins, and with fearless determination, she rode forward. Her horse leapt across the ravine. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then they landed safely on the other side. The Queen of Jhansi had escaped, but her fight was not over. Lakshmibai refused to hide. Instead, she gathered new allies, warriors who still believed in freedom, rebel fighters determined to continue the struggle. Soon, a new army stood beside her, and together they prepared for one final battle. On a dusty battlefield, two armies faced each other. Lakshmibai rode to the front of her soldiers, sword raised high. Her voice carried across the field. "Today we fight for our land and for our freedom." The battle began. Horses charged, steel clashed. Dust filled the air as warriors fought fiercely across the field. Lakshmibai rode directly into battle, leading her soldiers with fearless courage. But in the chaos of war, fate struck once more. A bullet hit the queen. She fell from her horse, wounded. Her loyal soldiers rushed to her side, but the injury was fatal. Even in her final moments, the warrior queen remained fearless. She had fought for her people. She had refused to bow before an empire. And in doing so, she had become a legend. The rebellion of 1857 would eventually be crushed. The British Empire would regain control. But the story of Lakshmibai could never be erased. Across India, her courage became a symbol of resistance. A queen who fought like a soldier, a mother who rode into battle, a leader who refused to surrender.
Even today, her name lives on in history. Because some heroes are not remembered for the thrones they ruled. They are remembered for the battles they fought. And Rani Lakshmibai will forever be known as the Warrior Queen of Jhansi.
If you enjoyed this story, please support the channel by leaving a like and a comment. Your support helps us bring more legendary stories from history. Thank you for watching.